So good morning, everybody. My name is Jen Jones. I'm the VP of Career Development, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys this morning. We are going to do one of our Accelerate Alumni success stories. So these are, one of my favorite things to do because I love when we have agents that have been able to get their careers up and running and built a really successful foundation that they're continuing to build on and give you guys the opportunity to learn from them. So that's what's super exciting about this is they're going to share, what worked for them, even what didn't work for them, and then what they adjusted and how they've really got up and running. You guys are welcome to ask questions. If you want to put your questions in the chat box, we can work through those. If you want to unmute and ask a question as they're explaining something, the goal is for you to get as much as you possibly can out of this session with them and learn from them. So please don't hesitate to ask questions as you think of things that would be helpful for you in the business that you are trying to grow and get up and running. So Kaitlyn, I'm going to start with you just because you're in the order on my screen. So Caitlyn Fowler, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey guys. So Caitlyn Fowler, I am in the Clarkview office. I became an agent. I got my license in August, and I am graduating the Accelerate program May. So yay, finally. So I kind of got started into real estate just because I bought a house and had a really bad experience with my real estate agent, and I know that it's such a great experience that I would love to be able to take, my friends and family through, and I know how great the experience can be. So, it strikes my interest in getting into it, and I had gotten laid off right, before COVID hit, so it was a good opportunity, and I'm loving it. Helping all of my friends and family find houses is super exciting. So it's been good so far.
Okay, Chrissy, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'm Chrissy. I started August 2019 and graduated March 2020, I think. So the whole real estate career kind of actually started as a joke. I was a teacher and I was getting really frustrated with the school system. And one day my husband and I were driving along in the car and I was crying. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And we happened to pass a Berkshire Hathaway sign. I was like, screw it. I'm going into real estate. And and then we looked at each other and he's like, actually, you might be pretty good at it. And so he actually bought his house before me with Donna Troop. And he's like, look, I'm still in touch with Donna. She's a great agent. Why don't you talk to her and see, where it goes. And so I did. And then I quit my teaching job and started real estate.
Awesome. So Kenny, do you want to go ahead and tell everybody a little bit of what got you into real estate?
Sure. So I'm Kenny. I'm in the East York office, and I'm licensed in Maryland as well. I got my license in October of 2018. I just kind of needed something different. Like my first career path didn't work out, and then I was just kind of like working in a kitchen and didn't have a direction. And my godmother is an agent in Maryland for, I believe it's 30 years now. I have a background in sales. It was my first job. I actually used to go door to door. So she called me and she's like, you should consider getting into real estate. We would love to have you on the team, et cetera, et cetera. I bought my online course the next day. I was like, let's do it. Let's just jump in head first and do it. So, and here I am.
Awesome. So thank you guys for sharing. It's always interesting to kind of see where people came from before they got into real estate and also kind of look at, how they leverage that background and experience in the business and what they're doing now. So we're going to pull some of those things out that I know about you guys as well. But I would love to start with you kind of talking a little bit about, you got that real estate license, you started training, talk to us a little bit about what that feeling was like being new and getting up and running, and compare it to where you are now, just to kind of paint the picture for everybody that is just starting and just getting up and running, what that's going to look like for them.
Yeah, I'll start with that one. So I definitely, everything that I've kind of gotten into, I like to master anything that I jump into. Like even if it's the smallest thing, like I started retail when I was 16 and then I ended up like managing the high, like doing, the biggest. So I really like to be the expert at whatever I can possibly do. So I was scared to jump in and there's so much information to get into and not have all of the information that I needed to really be able to help people. So I made sure I went through all the Accelerate courses, like at least twice, every single one of them, just to make sure I really had it down. And I mean, Tom can speak to it. I ask questions like crazy. Like I like to make sure that I know exactly what's going on. But it definitely, as I got into it, I started to realize that, it is a lot, but if you have the right checklist and as as you're especially helping friends, and people in your family at the beginning, it really gets you comfortably into it. And the more you ask questions and with every experience, you learn something. Every conversation, you learn something new. So I definitely feel more confident, but I feel like it's constantly going to be a learning experience and it's constantly going to be, something new, which is exciting.
Yep. I think that's a great way to explain it. I love that you talked about, being in class, revisiting class. You guys go through classes sometimes before you ever have a transaction, and then you get that first deal, and hopefully you kind of pull out what you've learned in class, even though you're not sure that you remember, it kind of becomes top of mind and you go, wow, I know that. I remember that from class, but then sitting back through it again, I think makes it so much more relatable because now you've walked through it. So I definitely, recommend doing what Kaitlyn did. Chrissy, Kenny, I'd love to hear from you guys.
Go ahead, Chrissy.
So yeah, it was, especially at first, it was scary because I was going from a nice salary teaching job to commission base. And I'm not gonna lie, there was definitely a few times where I was in Steph's office crying, like, I had like a job offer for going back to teaching, but I hate teaching and I don't want to go back to teaching, but I also need money. So yeah, it was, for me at least, it was really scary at first because I mean, like Kaitlyn, I'm used to being kind of the top of my field and jumping right in and kind of having a natural hack for like a lot of things. And this was something that I got the people side of it, but I started out with a very small sphere because I moved into the area for probably 7 years, 8 years ago, for a school. And then I got a job out here. And then I married my husband out here. So I kind of just stayed, but I didn't grow up around here. So I didn't have like all those high school friends or anything like that. And I went to school for music education. So a lot of my colleagues at college went on for like their graduate studies and stuff like that and moved out of state. So I didn't even have a ton of college friends around. So it was very scary at first. But I think something that really helped was having the support system of Stephanie and Dolly, and people that I can go to of, hey, I'm scared. I don't know what to do next. This is what I need. And they were able to help me kind of figure out how to get through that time.
Thanks, Chrissy. I know everybody's, felt like that at one point while they're getting up and running. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you went from not really having an SOI to building a database. So Kenny, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you started out?
Yeah, so it is scary. I mean, of course, especially because we don't get paid until it closes, and it has to close so that we get paid for all of our hard work. Um, the biggest thing that I can say is honestly, it's. I mean, like at least for me, it was a mindset. Like I didn't have a backup plan. I had to make it work, and nothing was going to stop me from doing that. So you just kind of have to you have to start talking to people, and everybody has to know that you're a real estate agent. One of the principles that I took early on that I thought really helped me, and I still tell newer agents this, you have to make a big deal out of everything that you're doing. So when you post on social media, anything that you're doing, like if you're sitting down like an accelerate or you're reviewing contracts or like you're just going to show a house, like anything, make it seem like bigger than it is, because what happens is people will start to see like, oh, so and so is really busy. Wow, they're showing a house today. This seems really cool. Oh, maybe we should let them know that grandma was talking about selling her house. Like it seems like they know what they're doing. So a lot of it, like I felt at the beginning, was honestly fake it till you make it. But what happens is once you start to get moving and you start getting your first leads and you start showing your first houses, you pick it up like that, like you really do. And you have to understand that when people do reach out to you, they're coming to you because you're the expert. Even if you don't think that you are, you still know more than they do. So you have to
Absolutely.
just kind of carry it as such. And then it's a lot of like, you just manifest it and it'll happen. But you got to tell everybody that you have to hit the ground running and just like, don't be afraid to just like, take chances. Like I got a call a couple months ago from a guy. I worked in a grocery store with him when I was like 20, and I saw him at Walmart like 2 years ago, and I just gave him a business card. He called me a couple months ago, and I'm like, did you still have that card? I remember that. He's like, yeah, I still saved it. So like you never know. You never know when somebody, like a conversation you have could lead to money for you in the future.
That's an amazing story, Kenny. That's pretty great.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean,
I
all of,
can I jump in where I'm not wanted just real quick, because there's two things that you and Chrissy both said that I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit too. You both, because I was their coach for both of them. It is a really emotional experience when you are a new person and having to completely learn something different, and it's a total change of your whole life. And I think for the two of them, what really helped was that they totally embraced the fact that it was emotional, and they didn't hide it from me, and they didn't hide it from their manager, because it's that can kind of be a mistake, that if you're suffering or you're feeling really bad about it, or you're thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to have to go get a job or whatever, and not telling anybody that you're having those feelings is going to kind of self-sabotage. But the two of them, yeah, there was tears. They did it in different ways. Chrissy would come in and she would cry, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to be doing. Kenny would come in and his version of that was like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this right? So it was helpful to them because they were so open about like where they were at, mindset wise and mentally. And then they were able to kind of talk that through and walk through it and get to the other side. So to me, I think that's what sets them apart from so many other new agents. The other thing too was small goals. Chrissy had like, not even small goals, but like very specific visual goals. Like Chrissy had like a very specific goal in mind for herself when she was doing it. Kenny's, I just want to throw out there because like to this day, I still remember it. Like his whole thing was, once I hit a certain point, I'm buying myself an awesome suit. Do you remember that, Kenny? We talked about that in my office. He was like, I'm going to buy like the best suit. And so like to this day, I still remember that. And so he did. He got him saying, you've got a really nice looking suit. after he kind of got his feet underneath of him. So sometimes just having something like visual like that you're reaching for really helps propel you. So I'll stop now, but I wanted to touch on both of those.
no, that was great. I think those are all really excellent points. I mean, what I took away from all of you guys is, you're always going to keep learning. That's something that Kaitlyn touched on. You all kind of touched on a little bit. It's a business that's ever changing. As you know, the market's constantly changing. And every transaction is at least a little bit different, if not totally different from every other transaction you've had. So it's absolutely a business where you keep learning, keep going to training, keep reaching out to your Accelerate coach or your manager. And the other thing, and I think this is so important, which Kenny touched on, is your mindset. You guys are the CEO of your own business. Nobody should want this more than you. So continue to find ways to motivate yourself or have an accountability partner that helps with that motivation on top of your office leader and your Accelerate coach so that you can continue to have that drive. Tom, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
I just want to add a little validity to what you just said. I've been in the business for 24 years. And so it's a little bit longer than most of the people on here, just a little bit. I had a situation 2 weekends ago and I didn't know which way to go. So without hesitation, I picked up the phone. I called the broker and I said, here's the situation. How does this play out? What's the best route to go? What's the best way to advise my client? We had to talk for about a half an hour. So it wasn't so cut and dry, but the bottom line is I wasn't afraid to ask the question.
Yep.
And you can't be afraid to ask the question. You make a decision that can lead a transaction in the wrong direction, and then it falls apart. People get in trouble. If you aren't sure, ask.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a stupid question. In this business, I don't care if you've been in it for 5 seconds or 50 years. As Jen was saying, every transaction is different. Every transaction has its little nuance, has its little twists and turns. What happens if you go this way? What happens if you go that way? Ask the questions, please. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, so important.
Can I just to elaborate, like, or to spawn off on that? One of the things that I did, because Tom talked about, like, if you don't know, you have to ask. Like, do not proceed until you have all the options in front of you and you know what's going to happen on either side. One of the things that I did before I had any business going on, like I had just gotten licensed, I had just gotten accelerate, I would sit down at night and I would like read the contract, like word for word, all 14 pages in Pennsylvania of the contract, and anything I didn't understand, like I would take notes on it. And even if we weren't there and accelerate yet, I would ask staff, because one of the things that you're going to run into is when you get people, like some of your first leads are going to come from people just asking questions and feeling it out. Like, oh, hey, if I sell my house, like what happens if this happens? I'm just kind of curious. People want to, the biggest thing people are going to look for is security, whether they're buying or selling. They want to feel, you're going to get it all the time. If this falls apart, what happens? Can I keep the earnest money? Do I get my earnest money back? Like, where am I protected? So you want to know the contracts and all the forms so you can at least have the answers, like, Mr. or Mrs. Seller or buyer, here's what happens. And then once people start to realize they have the security, especially with you as an agent, they feel comfortable with you, and then it proceeds from there. Then they let you into a little bit more about what they're thinking. Well, I was asking you because, we've kicked around the idea, we heard the market's hot, we should probably sell, or with interest rates really good, maybe it is time to stop renting and buy something. But make sure you familiarize yourself as much as possible with the contracts and the forms, like the buyer agency, the consumer notice. Make sure you just like read it, and anything you don't understand, just make notes of it and ask somebody. Even if you're not there yet in the program, just, it never hurts to get familiar up front, because that's going to be like your foundation, as people are going to want to ask questions about what happens if. So
Yeah, absolutely. Kenny, thank you so much for saying that. It's always better when it comes from you guys. And just really knowing how important it is. Something that we did recently do in our Pennsylvania .loop accounts, by the way, and they're in Maryland too, but it's Pennsylvania forms. PAR has a guide for several of the contracts, agreements, and addendums that reading the agreement is an excellent first step. And then there's also guides to all of those things that are for agents to help them understand when to use the form, how to use the form, and breaks down pieces of those. It's in .loop, and we have a specific folder. I think it's PA user guides. So that's an easy way to get access to those, as not just as you're filling them out, but as Kenny referenced, in just preparing himself and increasing his knowledge and understanding. So an easy place to grab those and continue to reference those along with reading the agreement so that they're accessible for you guys. Christy, I want to go over to you, and I want you to talk a little bit about, kind of coming in with not having a huge SOI. What are some of the things that you did to start building your database?
So anyone who knows me knows that I'm very energetic, and not necessarily like in your face when I don't know you, but like once I get to know you, like good luck. And so For the people that I would know, honestly, I would go on Facebook and like scroll through, like, you know how on like the little chat box they have the little green light if they're active. I would just scroll through, and like anyone that I like was comfortable with that I knew, I would just like, you know, click their little name and be like, hey, want to buy a house? And I actually did get a buyer that way. But I mean, honestly, I wouldn't do that if I wasn't super comfortable with the person. But a lot of them did know that I was a teacher. And so I was starting in August, which is around the time that like teachers start and get everything ready. So I would just chat with them and be like, hey, how's everything going? If they were teacher friends, I'd be like, hey, how's the school year? And they'd be like, oh, good. How are you? And I'm like, well, not teaching anymore. So, so just getting it out there that I was a real estate agent, and getting involved in things. I got really involved with the SPCA. I'm a cyclist or try to be. And so we would get involved in group rides, and you would just get to meet people. And then like, as we're riding, you know, friends of mine on the ride would be like, oh, hey, like, how much is that house worth? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I haven't been inside it. But sometimes you would pass a for sale sign and they'd be like, hey, like, they'd want more information, and then making sure that you get back to them. Like at the end of the ride, once we get off our bikes, I would just shoot them over. Usually I use HomeSnap. Shoot them over the link on the HomeSnap, so they have all my information there on HomeSnap too.
Awesome. Yep. I mean, networking, getting yourself out there, using what you are naturally doing in your regular day, because those are the people, you know, if it's taking your kids to swimming lessons, if it's riding bike, whatever you guys are doing naturally in your life, being more aware of who's around you and using those as opportunities to start the conversation. So it's, you know, a lot of networking is what I'm hearing from Chrissy.
Mm-hmm. I also did a lot of open houses. I know they're not as common right now, but I loved open houses because if you get talking to people, get them comfortable with you. Like Kenny said, it's all about creating that trust, creating that relationship. So if they, you know, make sure you have the home finding guide there so that you're their go-to resource of if they have questions, hey, look, I know this person's going to have answers. I'll just message them.
Kaitlyn, what are some of the first couple things you started out doing?
Yeah, so actually, just like Christina, just scrolling through and seeing those active people on Facebook was great. I didn't have the confidence that she did just to say, you ready to buy a house? It's great. But I, you know, just messaged them and said, you know, hey, how are you doing? And then just led the conversation to, you know, so I started a new career in real estate. You know, if you ever need anything and, you know, that involves real estate, just let me know. A couple people I would just, you know, ask if they, you know, might be interested in selling. Then I would send them like, are you interested in just a market watch? So you can send that right from our dashboard CMA or our CRM. I love our CRM and our dashboard. I add them into there. I put them, my groups are usually like, you know, met in high school, met on Facebook, met like just in kind of like how I met them. So I kind of know like where those people are coming from. And then I started them with campaigns right in the CRM. So just kind of, you know, they would get hit with stuff every once in a while that would just say my name and just, you know, tidbits of information. And then I'd put a little task in there, you know, that just to follow up with them and, you know, a couple of weeks or whatnot, just to say, hey, how are you doing again? And just touch base. So, you know, it all just kept working out. I tried to reach out to at least 5 people a day on Facebook, you know, whether they were, you know, the little active green or not, you know, just sending them a message, just reaching out to at least 5 people on Facebook a day. And then getting excited about stuff too. Like you guys mentioned, like everything you do. If I'm in the office, you know, just on floor duty on my laptop, I'm taking a picture of, you know, our cool office and the backgrounds. And, you know, as soon as I started, I took a picture of me in front of the building and with my Berkshire mask and, you know, just getting everybody excited. It started with just, you know, the people that I'm closest to. So my close friends and family, you know, my really close friends, just, you know, telling them I'm getting into real estate and, you know, talking to them about where they kind of are with that. And then it stretched out to, you know, as I got more confident and I felt, you know, better about being able to tell people that I can help them. And, you know, if that were to actually, you know, be something that they needed. So then I would just, kind of reach out to whoever I possibly can. And I think all of my sales so far have come from Facebook, just from me reaching out to letting people know, a friend saw that I posted that I was a real estate agent, and then she had a friend that posted they need a real estate agent. So she tagged me, and, so I was just able to follow up, and just the follow up. If one of my sales, she mentioned back in the summertime that she wanted to sell her home. And it wasn't until, just this past March that we actually wanted to list it and get it on. So I just kept up with her every couple months, just, how's it going? How's everything? How's the family? And then when it came time, she interviewed a bunch of agents, but she chose me because she knew that I was reliable and somebody who was following up frequently with her. So, just keeping up with people, whether it just be a little Facebook message, a little comment on Facebook, just showing that you're interested in their life and their activities, I think has been really helpful in just getting people to know that I'm in the business.
Yep.
Caitlyn, I wanted to ask you a question. If we could go back to your Facebook posting, I know all three of you do this. How often would you say in the beginning you were posting selfies and pictures of you doing things and being active? How often, like per week or per day, were you doing that? And how long would you say it took before you really started to see engagement on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first started, to be honest, I was a little timid about it. I didn't post too much. I was really more my dog. I posted my dog. I was like, I can post all about my dog every day. I got that. But I was timid to post like selfies and stuff. But then I sat down with my mentor, and that was my first question for her is, how often do you do it? And she said, every day, get something on there every single day. So I make sure, whether it just be, a little picture I found on Pinterest that says like something about real estate agents, or, just picture of the dog, or whatever it might be, I post every single day. And I, got people interacting right away. Like people just, saying things. I noticed that, this month, I've had a couple big events happen. So I've posted those on Facebook, and the amount of action that I've gotten on those, I've never gotten that many likes and hits on Facebook that I have when I posted like just this past month with the big experiences. So I'll get the hits on the real estate stuff, but it's really the personal stuff that, I get more of the hits on. So I think it's important to post personal, but then make sure that they know that you're an agent and you're there to help, but you're not just hyper focused on, making the money out of them. And, you're really just kind of sharing your experience and how much fun that you're having with it.
So Kenny,
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit about what you were doing with your social media too?
Yeah, the big thing, like I had said, and like Kaitlyn just touched on there, was like make a bigger deal out of everything that you're doing. Make it a bigger deal than it is, and people start to see that, and they get this, like, you create this image that you're super busy. Like, wow, he's showing a house. Or like one time I was in like Southern York County, and the sky looked pretty, so I took a picture and was like, so happy I get to drive around, show houses in this area, and the sky looks like this, and call me if you want to do this on a summer evening or something like that, But one of like the bigger things, and this may be just like in my personality, my very first transaction that I closed came from a group chat on Facebook, in which it was a friend's wedding, and he put like everybody that was coming to the wedding in this group chat, and I only knew like a handful of people, but I was like, I need business, I'm going to say something. So in the group chat, whether this was appropriate or acceptable or not, I was like, by the way, I'm a real estate agent. If anybody needs to buy or sell in Pennsylvania, let me know. And somebody DM'd me and was like, actually, dude, 2 days ago, I saw a house I want to see. I was going to call a realtor tomorrow. Can we go see it? And that ended up being my first closed transaction. It's a lot of like I said, just putting it out there, making yourself seem super busy. And you got to tell like everybody that you talk to, like it just comes up casually in conversations, like even outside of social media, just in person. You got to just let them know you're in the business and you love it. It's going really well and it's so busy, and you're helping, you're not selling, you're helping so many people, because then they know that they can trust you. You just got to take advantage of opportunities when they come to you. Like I actually, I have an appointment next week. It was supposed to be tonight, but we rescheduled. It's next week. This happened in early March, where I was in the gym one night and I came out super late. It was like 8:45 or something. And I had missed like 7 phone calls. And I always make a habit of any phone call that I get or miss, that's like a number I don't have saved, I always return the call in case it's somebody that like got my number from somebody else or something like that. So I missed a bunch of phone calls, and one of them I called back with a number that I don't know. And it was just, you know, a woman in Lancaster County. And she's like, no, it must have been a wrong number. Sorry, nobody called. And I was like, okay, by the way, before we go, if you ever need to buy or sell a house, let me know. And she goes, actually, we've been talking about selling. And then it just kind of, you know, I kind of snapped into work mode and I'm like, oh, okay, well,
I feel like we should all just like touch Kenny's hand or something, like absorb some of that luck.
Didn't you also get something off of a drip campaign that you had for a while?
Yes, that's happened a few times. I had one, this guy, Derek. And that's the other thing. Go through your CRM, and we have the drip campaigns. Like I did this during COVID because we had nothing but time. So I sat down and I went through the CRM and all the campaigns, literally every single email in every campaign, and I rewrote them because we have them, but like I wanted to make it sound like me. And I'd like, you can edit them, like put your picture in there, put like change the font and stuff like that. So it seems more personal. When I did that, I started getting a lot more hits off of it. But like people I didn't even remember. I'm like, who's this guy? But I put him on a drip campaign like a year and a half ago. Yeah. So that's kind of stuff that happens, but you start seeing that repeat over time. But just take advantage of like every opportunity that you have. Like I guess I approached it from a standpoint of, if I tell this person that I'm in the grocery store with and I'm kind of uncomfortable doing it, but if I don't do it, I might be walking away from like $3,000. You know, like you never know. And then like the guy I gave my card to in Walmart that day calls me like a year later, you know, so you got to take advantage of opportunities when they come up. You don't have to be pushy about it, but you just kind of like slide it in there like, oh, by the way, I'm a real estate agent. So it's going really well. You know, let me know if you need anything. I'm here to help.
I think that's a great perspective. I know we don't all have super outgoing extrovert personalities. It's just not how, you know, we were all created. But I love the mentality of looking at it and going, if I don't talk to this person in front of me, if I don't message them, if I don't leverage the opportunity right in front of me, I could be missing this. You know, it kind of goes back to giving yourself the confidence. You know, you guys have been through the classes. If you don't know the answer, it's a phone call away because of the support from the leadership team that we have. So, you know, just exuding that confidence when you're in those conversations and knowing, okay, I'm going to get as far as I can get. And when I get stuck, I'm going to go find that answer and get it back to them. I'm really hoping we'll kind of, you know, push all of you guys to see every single conversation with somebody as an opportunity to talk about real estate and leverage, because of that what if I don't, and then I go see on Facebook that they bought the house, or the next time I see them at the grocery store, the conversations, oh, we bought a house last week, because that's worse than, well, what if I use the opportunity and they said no? I think that weighs a little heavier than a no you could possibly get. The other thing that I love that you're all touching on is follow-up. You know, that's so important. We talk a lot about, I always kind of refer to it as layering. You know, you don't want to throw a ton of random darts. You want to continue to fire at the same target, and eventually you're going to hit the target. It's so much more impactful and powerful. So, you know, you guys have talked about using the CRM, and Kaitlyn touched on the tasks and follow-ups and the reminders and the market watch report. And Kenny talked about the drip campaigns. So finding a way to leverage the systems and platforms that we have so people don't slip through the cracks. You know, you're going to hit a database of 100 people and then 200 and then 300, and you're not going to be able to remember every single one of them. So leveraging those things for that follow-up and that consistency so that when they're ready, you're the person that they think of. So Chrissy, tell us a little bit about what you started doing with your social media content.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to touch on something you just said and Kenny just said too, with that whole, not everyone has like that outgoing, you know, go get it personality. I kind of do, but I really struggled with self-confidence at first. So part of that was just realizing that no one is going through life like that guy in front of you at the grocery store isn't going to say, wow, I really hope that person's life sucks. You know, in general, people want you to succeed. So if you realize that like people are wanting you to succeed, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, you know, seeing it as an opportunity rather than like, what are these people going to think about me? But going back to social media, so something I more recently just started getting into was branding, making sure that my social media has like a certain look that if people are just scrolling through, they're going to see it. They're going to say, oh, that's a post by Chrissy. That's and not really have to read it too much. Just be reminded of that constantly touch of, oh, hey, that's Chrissy. She's in real estate. Because part of it's just getting the referral. You know, maybe they are scrolling through and they see that post of either something that I posted that looks like me, or a selfie of me, or a picture of me at the office or something like that. And later that day, they're at work and they're like, oh, hey, someone says, you know, we're looking to buy a house. And they're like, oh, hey, I have a great agent for you. So it's not necessarily that you, like Kaitlyn, you could get like those hits off of Facebook, or Kenny with the group chat on Facebook. You could get those hits off of Facebook, but it's also just staying consistent and being top of mind. So, I mean, part of my thing is I try to do some branded and some personal. I have dogs. I post pictures of the dogs all the time. People know that I work with the SPCA a lot, so they know that I'm an animal lover. And so sometimes when I'm out on showings, if the neighbor has a really friendly dog, like I was on a showing and a dog kept poking his head like under the fence. And so I took a picture of the dog and I was like, well, whoever buys this home is going to get a really friendly neighbor, or something like that. And just staying top of mind that you're busy, and keep it looking like you and cohesive, because that's also going to help that professionalism, that trust of, oh, hey, not only are they doing a lot, but they seem to have their stuff really together, that they have this look, they have that brand.
It's creating a reputation for you is what I think of as you're kind of describing it. It's giving people that first impression and building your reputation of being a real estate professional that has credibility behind her. So I think that's a huge piece of it. I would love to hear you guys talk a little bit as, you know, you're using social media, you're messaging people, you're using drip campaigns, you know, how are you transitioning to those types of prospecting activities, to getting yourself on the phone, or to getting, you know, a client for coffee or lunch or face-to-face? How are you kind of all encompassing some of that more passive marketing with that face-to-face or even on the phone type of connection with them?
I guess like for me, a lot of my business is done through texting and email, and that's not necessarily my choice, but that's kind of like where my clients prefer. I think one of the things that I do to transition to it, you always want to get the appointment, of course, but you don't want to seem pushy about it. So I think that like for me, it was a lot of like, I'm okay. I always found I would explain things, like I would send like a long Facebook message or like a long text, like and you know, address their concerns and their fears. And sure, I'll be glad to help. Here's what happens if this happens, blah blah blah. And um, then I would be like, look, it's much easier for me, and this is true, like to explain verbally. Like I'll send audio messages a lot. That's something you guys can do. And if when they're texting you, just grab your phone and be like, hey, sorry, I'm driving. I just wanted to send this as an audio message. And like, because it flows more naturally, and like you know, you explain things better verbally, but then you kind of use that to look, why don't we schedule a phone call? Like I just kind of say stuff like that. Why don't we get on the phone? I have some time later today. Like, let me know whatever works for you, you know, no pressure, but here's my number. Send me a text so I have your number. Why don't we get on the phone just for like 10 minutes? I can go over everything with you. I explain things much better verbally. That's usually like what I've noticed is that, yeah, that I say that'd be my answer is I kind of just do like the let's get on the phone and talk about it. And I can address any questions you have like at that time. I'm much better verbally. So I just kind of ask.
Yeah, I've had a lot of luck with just offering Zoom calls. I mean, you know, everybody's home. They usually doesn't take much time out of their day, just to offer them like, hey, I'd love to walk you through the entire buying process. Let's have a quick Zoom call whenever you're free, and we can touch base. And most people are like, yeah, absolutely. Why not take 15 minutes out of the day? And I, run through, our marketing guide and our buying strategy guide, or whichever we need, and then I'll go through the agreement. If you're comfortable with signing now, that's awesome. If not, you have it. Here's everything. Here's the steps that you need to take, information for the lender, and then I'll touch base with you. So at least they kind of have everything up front, seeing face to face in person, and they're comfortable with doing it from their own home.
Yep, I think that's a great transition to just kind of get yourself in front of them. And Kenny, the same with getting them on the phone, even just starting to go from written text to hearing your voice increases that trust factor and the loyalty piece of it. And then getting your face in front of them with the Zoom meetings. I think those are some great transitions and ways to ease them into an appointment type conversation without going right from a text to, oh, can we meet in the office? Because that's not always natural. Sometimes it feels a little more invasive. Chrissy, what are you going to say? You look like you're going to chime in.
I call a lot anyway, just because I'm on the road a lot. I've had too many oopses with talk to text. Steph has been on the receiving end of many of them. So I generally just call, and I'll just start the phone call off with like, hey, I'm driving. Is this a good time for you? That way to be honest, they don't really have a choice. I mean, they do. If it's not a good time, they can be like, no. But some people I found, even with saying, hey, can we grab a phone call? It makes them a little apprehensive. Whereas if you just call them and you're like, hey, I was in the car. Is this a good time? They're much more able to talk. And then I'm a huge coffee drinker. So instead of being like, hey, come to the office, where that can be a little standoffish, I do like to try to get them into the office at some point, because again, it establishes that professionalism. It establishes that I have a home base. But for that first meeting or two, maybe we go grab a coffee and we just go over the basics of either buying or selling, what happens, answer questions and stuff like that.
Thanks, Chrissy. I think that's, a great way to kind of take a first stepping stone, and then, do lead it into the office where it is more of like a consultation appointment, but it kind of eases you into getting to know them and feeling like it's more relationship building on their side of it too. Brady, I saw your question in the chat box about, are you guys posting the same content on social media? What social media platforms essentially are you guys using? And Kenny, I know you responded with you're primarily using Facebook, but Kaitlyn, Chrissy, did you guys want to chime into with which platforms you're using? Are you changing up the content? Is it the same content? How are you balancing that across various platforms if you're using more than just Facebook?
Yeah, so I am really, sorry.
Oh, go for it.
Actually, both Facebook and Instagram. Those are really the only two that I've really linked hard on. And I don't like to, I'm one of those people that hate to pull up my Facebook and see the same stuff on Facebook that I see on Instagram. It makes me crazy. So I try to change it up, even if it's just a little bit, a different picture, maybe put it in my story on one and post on the other. I also heard that, the algorithm that sends to your followers is different. You want to post different times of the day, so you're hitting different followers. So if you're posting at the same time each day, you're hitting the same bunch of people, so make sure you're posting at different times. But I try to mix it up. I have been really wanting to get into LinkedIn, though. That's the one that I haven't yet reached into, that I think is definitely promising. So every once in a while I'll post something little on LinkedIn, but really trying to mix it up and just post something different on either one.
Go ahead, Chrissy.
So I do what Kaitlyn hates. I have my Facebook and Instagram linked because before I was a real estate agent, I really wasn't big on social media. So it was tough for me to start posting everything on social media, at least once a day. I think before I was a real estate agent, I posted maybe every 3 months. It was Like that was not gonna fly.
No, that's a big change.
And so I have it linked so it's just easier, and I sit and schedule everything out, usually either on Sunday night or Monday, whichever is better for me. I schedule out my whole post, and so I'll create them on Canva, write a little caption to go with them, and then schedule them. And then as I go, so I have at least one thing per day. It's only, now that stuff is strictly like the branded professional, like infographic, fun stuff. And then as I go throughout the week, I try to have at least 3 days of personal post in there, whether it's, me coming home at 9 o'clock at night and sitting down on the bed and my dog sitting on me because he doesn't want me to leave. Or, the dog on the showing. I do a lot of dog posts. I'm not a huge selfie person. I'm not a huge, like on me type thing. You do have to be a little bit as a real estate agent because you need to get them to know your face. You need to get them to know your personality. So maybe it's, I know yesterday and last night it was a little rainy. And so maybe I have a sunroof in my car. I took a selfie of like me and the sunroof with rain all over it saying, whether rain or shine, I'm out here showing homes. I do post a little different because you can't really do links. You can't really do stuff like that in Instagram. So I do a little bit more of that on Facebook. I'll do events on Facebook. I know I did a lot of open houses before. Can't do them as much now, but I've had a lot of success too with like more virtual open houses and scheduling that alongside of my like in-person open houses now. So I do it similar to like one of those Pampered Chef parties or something like that, where you have like a couple days leading up to the party. And you post stuff like getting ready to do it. So maybe one day I feature the kitchen, one day I feature the master suite or primary suite, whatever we're calling it now. And do stuff like leading up to it. Maybe do an interactive post in that event, like next home I'm buying is gonna have fill in the blank, and then have people comment their fill in the blank. So do something like that. Leading up to the open house, and then at the open house do a walk, like get there 30 minutes ahead, do a quick walkthrough video showing the open house, so that even if you don't get people at the open house, you do it beforehand. That type of stuff you can't really do on Instagram. You have to do it on Facebook. I'm not a huge LinkedIn person. I have it linked to my account, so it posts like articles and stuff, but I'm not super active on that. But I am trying to get more into YouTube. I've been not great about that. But finding videos that we can do, and then taking those videos and maybe making clips of them that I can put on Facebook, that I can put on Instagram and lead back to YouTube, and trying to have everything linked so that they're constantly like within my circle of things like Facebook, Instagram, website, YouTube. So it's all kind of pointing together.
So Chrissy, you've come a long way from like one post every 3 months is, what, and Steph kind of said it in the chat box, you got out of your comfort zone with it, and you kind of jumped in and realized how important it is, and made a deliberate effort to get up and running and have a good presence. I mean, you went from one post every 3 months to using Facebook, using Instagram, learning YouTube, and knowing that it's important enough to link it all together so that when somebody is on one channel, they can see the impact of your entire online presence. And when they look at that, they look at somebody and go, wow, if she's marketing herself like that, she can market my property like that. So I think that's so important. But, you guys have talked, each of you in different capacities have talked about how, you've gotten out of your comfort zones to try new things and different things. Switching gear a little bit from social media, Kenny, I would love to hear you talk about some of the door knocking you've done when you first started out and how that's kind of impacted your business.
Yeah, that's right. We did used to do that before COVID. So I took that when I was a teenager, my first job was we went door to door and I would try to set leads for like home improvements. So I kind of pulled back from that, the stuff that I was taught and that I would use to say, and I would transfer it. I would use the same thing to transfer it to real estate. So we used to go around and be like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I'm with Homeview Contractors. We just did work for the Smiths up the street. Do you know them? Yeah, they're new windows. That was us. So what I would do is I would target neighborhoods where like I just sold a listing or I have an open house coming up. Like you have a reason to be in the neighborhood. It makes it at least a little more legit. And you'd be like, hey, I'm just coming through to, invite you to this open house, and you hand them the open house flyer. And yeah, it's a really nice house. Even if you just want to come check it out, see what your neighbor's house is like, kind of get a feel and compare it, et cetera. But you show up, you want to be like just friendly, outgoing, and you're not there to sell them anything. So that always makes people a little more willing to talk. And I would say that up front. I'd be like, I'm not selling anything. I'm just coming through, talking with the neighbors. That was like my big line. Or like, yep, just listed this house, just got this house sold. As I'm sure you've heard, it's a really good market for sellers. If you're ever curious, man, here's my information. Just keep me around. We can at least show you what we can do for you. So you just kind of show up from, like I said, a place of like, I'm going to help this person. And then it kind of leads to, converting that into a buy or sell or something like that. So
one thing I can say about Kenny is that he has this really like conversational style. So I think he goes into it like it's just like I'm just chilling with this person and having a conversation, and there's not like this pressure to like make it all businessy or anything. And so I think he really disarms them from the beginning, because he's not all like, oh my God, I need a script. I need, he's just there for the chat.
yeah, and part of it too is like you gotta not be afraid to like in a professional and respectful manner tell people that like this is wrong or this is not a good idea or like this is probably something you shouldn't do. Like, and it kind of plants that seed of like, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about, we should hire him. I found like, and this may be kind of a flaw, but it's always worked for me. I shouldn't say any, but most times I've been on a listing appointment, I've not been competing with another agent. I've honestly not been in many situations in which like so-and-so calls and like, I want you to come out and I'm interviewing other agents. Most of my listings have been like, dude, you did a great job selling my mom's house. My brother needs to sell his house, or so-and-so. Like, that's kind of how it's always been for me. So I guess that's given me the confidence to proceed like that. But like, yeah, you got to tell people, because that's your job too. Like, oh, you're going to sell it on your own, and kind of give them that look and be like, okay, well.
Right. That look says you're very scared for me. That's
yes.
the look.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, man, well, if you're doing that, I'll check in with you and see how it goes, and, see how it's, and even if it's like, even especially in this market, like a lot of foosbos will sell.
Nice way of saying good luck with that.
Right. Here's my card. So yeah, you take the pressure off. Everything's a conversation. That's all it is. You're just having a conversation with people. And then it just kind of comes like that before you even realize it. So
Yep, absolutely. It's a different feel than, the Terminex guy knocking on your door trying to sell something. It's, it all kind of goes back to your goals to build a relationship, because once you've built the relationship and you've built the trust and you've created that connection, that gives you what Kenny just explained of, I'm not typically competing for the listing because I was the only one they considered. It's a referral from family, friends, and people that have used him. And that's, the ultimate goal of getting your business up and running. So one of the things I would love for you guys to touch on, I know we've only got a couple minutes left, you've gotten a significant amount of transactions under your belt and built your business. What are you doing to keep in touch with those clients after settlement and to create some of the consistency that we've talked about?
Yeah, so I mean, I like to make sure I follow up at least, a couple days after settlement, like how's it going? How's moving in? I like to send them a little thank you for using me card. So, you know, that gets there in a couple weeks. I'll start them up with market watches just so they can start seeing like what the area that they just moved into is looking like and what's happening in the area. And then I always like mine so far have been Facebook and been friends. So I try to make sure I just keep up with them on Facebook. You know, I'll put the little notification so I get a notification anytime that they post something on Facebook. So it's easy for me just to constantly comment on their Facebook and then just try to check in, you know, a month after, just checking in, seeing how they're doing. You know, summertime's coming, when you having the cookout that I can come to and, you know, see how the house is, and, you know, just trying to really make it a, you know, very easy, very flow, just like Kenny said, a conversation. And it's not just, you know, professional, but it's just like, how's it going? Like, you know, I want to make sure everything's good. And then hopefully if you stay front of face, then, you know, they'll refer you and use you next time.
Yep, it's important. You know, some of what Kaitlyn touched on immediately made me think of the relationship you create with them during the transaction, and how, you know, they feel like your friend, they feel like family, even if they didn't know you prior to that transaction. So doing those things on top of some of like the market watch reports, but doing the in-person, stopping by to see the house, makes them feel like, oh, that relationship's going to continue. Like it wasn't just during the transaction, which I think is so important.
Yeah. And
oh, go ahead, Chrissy.
I don't do a traditional closing or settlement gift. I try to find out when they're moving, when they're going to be moving, about how many people are going to be moving, and I show up with pizza. Because then not only am I hitting them, but I'm hitting all their friends who are helping them move. And like I've had a couple people be like, oh, like we've moved several times and no real estate agent has showed up afterwards with pizza. So that, and because I don't do like a bigger traditional settlement gift, I try to like stay in touch and drop things off as I think of them. I have one client who is an avid tennis player. So when this year started to get nice, I belong to Costco, and so like they have the big box of tennis balls, and so I got a big box of tennis balls and dropped it off with a little note saying, you know, I had a ball working with you last year. I just like little cheesy things like that because I'm cheesy. And then I have a couple clients who, you know, moved and didn't have a ton of home knowledge. So instead of doing like a closing present or something like that, she needed new screens. And so at closing, I said, look, replacing screens are easy. There's no reason to pay someone $20 to do each screen. Like you can buy a whole roll and do like 4 of them for that price. So we'll work out a time and I'll come over and help you replace your screens. And so now every time she pulls up to the house and sees her like new screens, she's like, hey, my real estate agent helped me do that. So just stuff like that. I try to personalize it to each person. I don't really have a set thing. I always follow up with like a call a month after, you know, a card. I usually send the card out the next day after settlement of, you know, thanks for working for me or working with you and all of that. But yeah, it's not really one set thing. I just personalize it.
I always do, like Chrissy just said, the card is big, the handwritten note, the card, send it out like as soon as it closes, thank you for, and thank them like, hey, congratulations. You know, I know it was a stressful process for you. It always is, but we did it. We got to the finish line. I was happy to be the one to represent you during it and help you out. Send the card. The pizza thing is a really good idea. I've heard people do that. I've never done it, but I'm a big fan of that. So I'm definitely taking that away. But text it, like just follow up, send text like a couple weeks later. How's the house? How's the move in? Send me pictures, like, you know, send me updates that you've done. When is the cookout? Like Kaitlyn said, stuff like that. And then like make it personal after that is what I do. Like I have some clients who the wife is from Thailand, and anytime I see like something about Thailand, I'll like screenshot it and send it to them, be like, thinking about you guys, like just make it personal. Like I love the tennis ball idea. That's really cool. That's really personal. So Yeah, I agree with everything that they said. Just kind of stay in touch and make it personal with your clients after settlement and check in on them.
Yep. It lets you know that, they mean a lot to you, just like you mean a lot to them, having gotten them through that experience, and that you're thinking of them. So I'm going to give you guys one last question. And while you guys are thinking about how to answer that, I'm going to give everybody on here a minute just to think about if they have any questions for you or anything else that they want to hear from you guys before we log off. So the last question I would love for you guys to answer, and just kind of a quick response: what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to everybody on here? So, well, go ahead, Kaitlyn, if you're ready.
I would say, I mean, the biggest piece of advice I feel like I got was, don't be afraid to be annoying. Like, it's okay to get in their face and tell your friends a million times that you're a real estate agent. Because sometimes it's hard for me to just I feel like I'm being annoying, but it's okay. Just be annoying. It'll be okay in the end.
Know your contracts, know your paperwork, know how to protect your clients and protect yourself. Put everything in writing, and don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Just take the chances, take the chance and be like, this dude could be $3,000 or it could be nothing, but I'd rather find out than see the money go to somebody else. Just get out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and just you gotta just go get it. Just go get it.
Yeah, and I mean, with the whole you have to go get it too, you have to have a little bit of thick skin, because you are going to have people who aren't going to use you. You are going to have people, friends go with someone else and stuff like that. You have to have thick skin and be able to just kind of shake it off and keep going, because if you dig yourself in a hole from those few things, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to kind of have a little pity party, but just be able to shake it off and keep going. Learn from your mistakes, definitely. Like if you have someone, if you're willing to reach out and be like, hey, just wondering why you didn't use me. Phrased in a nicer way than that, but learn from your mistakes, but have a thick skin.
Yep. I love all of those things, guys. Those are, some really great words of wisdom for everybody. Any questions that you guys have for Kaitlyn, Chrissy, or Kenny? You can feel free to unmute, stick it in the chat box here if you guys have any questions or anything else you want to hear from them.
Hi, this is Erica. I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank all of you for all of this. This has been so very helpful. It takes the pressure off of trying to do everything right, trying to get everything right the first time, and moving out of the comfort zone. All of it has been very helpful. I want to thank you so much for sharing. This has just been really great. And thank you, Jen and Steph and Tom, for organizing all of this. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to hear from you, Erica.
Yeah, it's funny. So Dolly's my manager, and my cubby is kind of right outside her office, and she'll hear me out there working, and sometimes a few choice words are said. And you'll just hear her yell out of our office, done is better than perfect. So it's been kind of our motto, because I'm a perfectionist. I like to have things right before they go out. But sometimes just doing things are better than perfecting things before they go, because at least they're done.
Yep, absolutely. I think of, I can't remember if it was at kickoff or another time, but Rod had, maybe it was graduation. Rod had at one point given a speech about, there were two groups, and one group was making something and they were tasked with doing the most in quantity. And there was another group tasked with coming up with the best product in quality. And at the end of the day, the group focused on quantity had the best quality, because of everything that you guys talked about. The group over here was so worried about getting it exactly right and exactly perfect from the first and second time. The group over here kept going and kept getting it done and kept learning from every mistake or every adjustment. And at the end of the day, because they kept going and kept getting out there and trying, they ended up with the best quality. So I always think of that when I think of you guys getting up and running, get out there because you're going to learn from it. And with every single phone call, every single appointment, you are going to get better and more confident every single time. The last question that came in, have any of you guys paid for marketing options? And if you have, were you able to get good results from those?
No, I have not. I really want to take advantage of all of the free resources that we have to offer. That's one huge reason why I came to home sale, because I knew everything that there was to offer. So I try to utilize all of that before. So I haven't done any outside money yet. Nope.
I have, I really, and I haven't seen results. Like I maybe have gotten like a couple leads that have gone somewhere outside of home sale. But like just the ads, like people call you and be like, yeah, we're running this exclusive one agent in your area ad. Like I've fallen for that a couple times. I mean, I guess it can work. It's never worked for me. I will say one thing you want to do is send out just listed and just sold postcards for every listing that you get. And like the big principle I took with every listing, you should get one more transaction. Somebody should call from your sign and you got to capture that. You should, somebody should call from the flyers that you send or somebody that you get from an open house from it. You should think of each listing should get you one more transaction at least. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Christy, did you want to add something before I wrap up?
For marketing, all I like, definitely the postcards that just listed, just sold postcards. And then I paid for the agent website because again, I think it just gives you that professionalism and it gives them a good resource to go to of, if I have questions, I can go there. But that's about it. I haven't paid for any like leads, online leads or anything like that. So no.
And Christy, you're doing the website through the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that kind of, I know for me, ties to how much you're focusing on your branding and your online presence and, all of your social media and everything you doing online, linking back to that website where you can generate leads from. So, being focused on that and having that landing place is super important too. And, I've always been of the opinion of when you are ready to start paying for marketing options, especially if it's, Facebook ads, internet leads, anything in that capacity, get a website in place first because you want a landing place and you want to focus on one place where it's branded to you to drive traffic to. You don't want to send them to Zillow, to the land of listing agents is what I call it. So, always focus on how can I get them back to where it's just me and my branding and I'm kind of the lead funnel for those things. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your willingness to share. I think we've all are able to walk away with quite a few excellent takeaways and things that we've learned from all of you. So, you're busy and we just really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share what has worked for you. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.